Boston College's run game has been frustrating through the first 3 games, but it can be fixable. We'll explain how.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all for joining us. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for news, insight, and analysis on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We've got a special guest again on today's show with thoughts on Dylan Lonergan. Where is he going? Are we concerned? We'll get into it. The defense and tackling. Is it as bad as it looks? And will that torpedo the season? We'll talk about that. In the run game and offensive line progression, is it enough? We'll get into it. And to talk about all of this, we are bringing on, of course, Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. Excited to be back on, talk about this kind of stuff. I am back after watching the film and reviewing the stats from this game, neither of which were that pretty. But as I wrote in my film review for the offense, the axiom in football goes that you're never as bad as your worst game and you're never as good as your best game. And I think that was the case here today because there was some decent stuff in this game. And again, if you go back to how the game was going, BC is up 17-6 at one point. They're driving into the red zone. Even later in the game when they've had these issues with turnovers, they're tied at 20 and going into the fourth quarter. So it wasn't like they came out and Stanford just blitzed them and destroyed them on every front. They were in this game for the majority of it. They just kind of fell off the end, which I honestly think was a fatigue thing in terms of just it was 12:30 in their body clocks, and that's why you saw the run defense really collapse in the final quarter and a few minutes. So that's something that you kind of just can't avoid, and it's unfortunate. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this when you had me on earlier this week, but I do kind of give Bill O'Brien credit for taking the high road and not complaining about this game being so late, being a West Coast trip. And because that's a big factor, but a lot of coaches would have taken that route. And I credit him, even though he probably believes it and would agree with that statement, credit to him for not just throwing all the blame on that.
Yeah, so let's get into that run game. Turbo Richard, obviously had the big fumble at the 1 yard line, second in 2 weeks. That's obviously a tough pill to swallow when you see things like that. But there was positive signs from that run game in this matchup against Stanford. What did you see, and is it worth thinking that this could continue to go in the right direction for BC?
Yeah, I feel like they're close. If you really watch the film and go back and watch each of these games, really the Fordham game you can kind of throw out because obviously in the fourth quarter the game's over and they're not running a lot of diverse stuff. Against Michigan State and Stanford, again, the run game wasn't very pretty, but if you go back and watch it, you're seeing more diverse schemes, more stuff being packaged onto the run plays they're calling, whether it be motion, RPOs, what have you. And you're seeing more success. And granted, it's still not good enough. I will stipulate that they need to be better. The offensive line needs to play better in terms of not making mental mistakes. There was a play that was kind of funny in the fourth quarter where they're running this counter play, which with one puller, and Jeremiah Franklin and Kevin Klein both go to double team a guy, and they kind of pincer move him. And it's a good block. And then basically as soon as I think it's Turbo, kind of cuts up field towards them, they both peel off the double team and just let the guy tackle Turbo. And it's like that's the kind of stuff that you gain by experience with each other. And, obviously Kevin Klein's been around a long time. Jeremiah Franklin's been around a long time, but they haven't played next to each other that much. They don't have that much experience blocking with each other. And especially later in the game, when you're tired, you're fatigued, you're going to make mistakes like that. But there were a few other plays like that where guys just didn't block where they were supposed to. They didn't finish the block. I do think that switching out Dwayne Alec for Michael Krauts is going to be a good move for this offensive line because in this game, and I sent you some of the clips and they're in my film review, he's just getting detonated at the line of scrimmage and in every way possible. There was one play where he just gets knocked on his butt. There's plays where he's getting swim moved around. It was some really bad tape. And, he's been a player on this team for a while and he's had some decent moments, but I think it's just fair to say this guy isn't, he's just not good enough to be a starter for this team, especially at center where you need the guy to be reliable. And this is before you get into the snapping issues, which have been, they really came to a head against Stanford. There was another play later in the game where it was a bit of a bad snap, but Lonergan handled it. But we've seen bad snaps in the first 2 games. So I think that should be a good move going forward. Not sure what's going on with Jude Bowery. We'll see if Ryan McCow stays there. And then I'm hoping that they'll at least consider switching Kevin Klein and Logan Taylor, at least for pass protection purposes, because Kevin Klein was having some issues in pass protection on the right side, especially dealing with speed, which has kind of always been his issue. And I think Taylor is just more suited to play tackle at the college level. Maybe in the NFL, but even so, I just don't think his guard tape has been that impressive. And I think he can be better using his athleticism in more defined matchups as a tackle.
Are you worried though that if say Bowery's out, you've already moved Crounce in, you have to move McCow in, replacing 3/5 of your offensive line? Is that going to be too much?
I think it could be, and that's probably why they would not do it. But on the other hand, those are 2 guys who are, seniors, redshirt seniors, whatever, who have been around a long time. And I do think that if Klein does have a future, it is at guard. He just doesn't have the speed or the foot quickness to play tackle. It's that simple. He does have the size and strength to play guard. So I think that's better for them. But again, it would be, they're in the bye week, so they do have a little more time, but I do understand the reticence to basically shuffle your entire offensive line, minus the one position where, you're breaking in a true new starter with Eric Stockerty, who's been in left guard the whole time, but he has been a bit up and down. But I think you're making an upgrade at center at least. I think McCow is going to be a good player eventually, maybe not to the ceiling of what Jude Bowery is, but again, with Bowery, we've kind of had these injury issues over the last few years. So availability is the best ability, as they say. So again, I'm seeing improvement because you are seeing these plays start to break in the second level. You're seeing some interesting designs. You're seeing these RPOs where they're throwing against better numbers to get the ball out on the perimeter, which are good plays. You're seeing some better vision from Turbo and McDonald, where they ran a lot of those pin pull sweep plays where they pull the 2 guards or pull 2 linemen out to the outside. And later in the game, there were times where Turbo and Jordan McDonald would kind of press upfield and be patiently press upfield, but then break to the outside. And that's a really good sign to see they're doing that. You saw some successful zone runs in the middle of the game, which is good to see as well. So again, I think they're close, but again, this game kind of got out of hand in the second half where they kind of had to abandon the run game. So that didn't help much. And, with the fumbling thing, I think fumbles are, unless you have very specifically turnover prone players who just have bad ball security and that's consistently shown, I think fumbles can be kind of random. And I think that's kind of what happened with Turbo here. I think his goal line fumble against Michigan State was just a great play by the defender. He gets in there, rips the ball out. It happens. The defender made a better play. The 4th and goal one it's really tough because I get the sense that he was probably just trying to do too much, and you could kind of see him get ready to jump. And I imagine as he's getting ready to jump, he is going to start bringing the ball up to kind of reach it out in front of him. And so you're kind of, as you're transitioning the ball from a normal carry to a different one, you're going to lose some security of it. And that's why the ball kind of gets poked out. So, and again, Turbo is just generally too good to, bench. And maybe if you want to give Jordan McDonald more goal line carries, I'm fine with that because he has a bigger back. He gives you some more power. But I don't think this is evidence of a endemic, really problematic issue for Turbo Richard in the run game.
So we're talking about 4th and goal there. Can we please talk? Just give me 20 seconds for the people of line up under center.
Oh God. Okay.
Just do it. Do it, Mitch.
Okay. So BC does not line up under center. It's just not in the playbook. I'm sorry. And like it or not, that's just, it is what it is. O'Brien does not want to operate that way. So many players these days, quarterbacks just don't operate under center coming from high school. They're looking at Dylan Lonergan's huddle highlight tape from high school. There was one play where he did run a under center QB sneak. That said, you are much more likely to have a snap exchange problem in a, tightly contested short yardage QB sneak situation, especially for a quarterback who is not used to it and a center who is not used to it. Because with Alec, who again is a new center who's had issues, granted issues with shotgun snapping, but you're probably going to have issues where it's okay, everybody's really condensed in tight and this is an unfamiliar situation to us. So it may seem familiar to other people who've been watching football for a long time, but for these younger players and these younger teams where it's just not part of the offense, it's unfamiliar to them. And when you're in these very high leverage situations, you don't want to be putting players in unfamiliar situations, unfamiliar positions where they're going to be uncomfortable. You want them to be obviously football is a tough game. It requires physical contact and violence, but your job as a coach is to make your players as comfortable and increase their chances of success as much as possible. And in my opinion, based on what Bill O'Brien wants to do in this offense, that is antithetical to what his players are comfortable with, based on the offensive scheme that he's running.
I just had to bring that up because every fan continues to bring that up. And it's not what BC does.
And I will say, like, with this, Lonergan probably makes the most sense because of the quarterbacks of the last few years, Castellanos, James, he is probably the least athletic when it comes to mobility. Like, if you look at the other quarterbacks, Castellanos, James, you want them in the shotgun because you want their athleticism to be something the defense has to consider. If they're under center, it's nothing. Like, they can't. I know Peyton Manning ran a few naked bootlegs for touchdowns back in the day. That's just not really a thing. Justin Fields did do it in week 1 for what it's worth, but that's just not a part of the offense anymore. You want a read option on to be the extra thing the defense has to think about. And obviously you don't want Thomas Castellanos sneaking the ball because he's tiny and like he doesn't have the physical strength to it. But with Lonergan, again, there is some at least some evidence of having experience with it. And he's a decent, runner, but he's not great. So it's like, I do wonder if maybe they could, there's been multiple times here. I'm like, okay, if they're going to do it, they would do it now. If that 4th and goal, when they were backed up on their 1 against Michigan State and they didn't do it. So we've seen situations where they could do it, it would make sense, but they just haven't done it. So it's probably not going to happen.
All right. We just had to bring that up. All right. In a moment, let's flip to the other side of the ball. Let's talk defense in the tackling issue. BC had, I think the adjusted number is 12 missed tackles in this game now. We'll get into what they did, what they didn't do, and can it be fixed again in just a moment. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Boston College, Luca Lombardo delivered in a big way. Luca hit a 51-yard field goal, went 2 for 2 for field goals, and was perfect from extra points. When the pressure was on, Lombardo came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, the performance wasn't a fluke. Lombardo is on a streak. And just like Luca Lombardo delivered for the Eagles, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. I've done all of those with the NFL. It makes the watching more fun, and I hit more when I do these kind of things. So it's been a really good deal, and it's so easy to use. The app is very user-friendly. You can find the bets you want to make, whether it's player props, parlays, boom, 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 you are done and you're ready to watch your game. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy on your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Locked On Boston College, this is AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. And I know a lot of you have made Locked On your first listen, and some of you out there, I really appreciate each and every one of you who have done that. Now, we're talking about the defense. Let's get into, a group that had a tough game against a Stanford offense that had been struggling. Mitch, you rewatched the film. What did you see?
Tackling was terrible. I mean, that's really that simple. And I think you saw it appear in a variety of ways. It wasn't just like one type of missed tackle. You saw guys coming in too fast, too aggressively, taking bad angles. You saw players getting sloughed off because they came in too high and they weren't physical enough at the point of attack. You saw even guys kind of try low arm tackles and they didn't work. And even you saw plays where the first person missed the tackle, but it forced the ball carrier to slow down and it allowed other players to come and rally to the ball. So again, you want to see fewer missed tackles, but it's like some missed tackles are worse than others. For example, like KP Price actually had a decent game tackling. According to PFF, he had 7 tackles. 4 of them are stops, which is basically a tackle that's a failure for the offense. And he had 1 missed tackle. The 1 missed tackle was on the big Micah Ford run right after the BC 4th and goal fumble. And to his credit, Omar Thornton also missed a tackle earlier in the play. And then Price came in and kind of got juked out of his shoes a bit and couldn't get an arm enough on Micah Ford. Whereas Omar Thornton had 4 missed tackles in this game and also was responsible for covering the tight end that was Stanford's very long touchdown towards the end of the first half. So really bad game for Omar Thornton. Just playing too aggressively, too fast, taking bad angles. So that's ideally you just got to work on that. You got to fix that by teaching better pursuit, being more disciplined. Other guys that struggle with missed tackles, I tend not to be too mad about it if you have like a nose tackle, like a Quan Williams type player, and the running back gives him a juke move in the A gap and he breaks aside. It's like, okay, like, yeah, the running back is going to be more athletic than the nose tackle. I can live with that.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, we're just playing too hot. And I think the problem with BC from a schematic standpoint is that because they wanted to be more aggressive in this game with blitzing and kind of take we're going to blitz so much and be aggressive so that we can take some pressure off our secondary by getting to the quarterback quickly. It kind of came back to bite them because you're still playing a lot of man coverage, and ostensibly, even with the depleted cornerback room, those guys were supposed to hang with Stanford's receivers. They had some trouble with that, so that was a problem. Specifically, Max Tucker, Isaiah Ferris didn't get targeted that much, so that was a problem. And you saw it on 1 or 2 plays where they got a crossing route over the middle, and 2 guys missed a tackle, and that turned into basically a short gain, but a 4th down into a first down at a decent gain. So that was a big problem. I think if there are positive takeaways about this one, I think the plan of blitzing aggressively to generate pressure, it is working. It's just not probably working at the rate that you want it to. You're seeing plays where they are getting to the quarterback, they are getting sacks, even if they're not getting sacks, they're getting hits on the quarterback that are turning into throwaways or basically intentional groundings. There was one play where they did blitz, and it was early in the game where Gulbranson got flushed out, scrambled to his right, and the refs just missed a blatant hold on Chris Marable. There were a few of those in this game, but again, it's football, that happens, so you can't really make it your whole thesis. So I think you just have to hope that they can get some health back in the secondary, namely Amari Jackson. It seems like Sire Torrance can be out for a while.
Based off his Instagram post, just by the way.
Yeah. So that is troubling, but they really need to get healthy there, or hope that some of the young guys can step up, because they were a little more diverse in their coverage in this game. They were only at like 39% cover 1, which in the past 2 games they've been at like 77 and 90%, I think. So they did do some more zone coverage, but I think they need to keep going with it if they feel that they can trust these guys mentally, which is a question mark. And that's why you play zone when you have less athletic players, but you can trust them mentally not to make mistakes. And even the play I mentioned where Stanford's tight end got loose for that long touchdown, if you watch, it's basically a bootleg concept where they're rolling everything to the right, and then there's just like a few routes layered on top of each other. And you had 2 guys covering the flat route underneath and nobody covering the tight end on the corner route. So that was the problem. You had Thornton over the top, and again, he took a bad angle trying to undercut the route to break up the pass, but you needed one of the 2 guys on the flat route underneath to drop back and basically undercut the throw and then have Thornton over the top. So that was a mistake. It's hard for me to say like this defense is being too aggressive though, because I think that the thing with a lot of these, people are like, oh, they need to make adjustments, they need to do this, they need to do that. It's like coaches are doing things because there's a trade-off for everything. Like if they play a more conservative zone defense, they would have to play more 2 high shells. So they're going to be worse against the run because there'll be fewer bodies in the box. They'll also, again, there will be likely more true coverage busts in that guys will make mental mistakes and there'll be wide open voids, as opposed to just getting beaten with speed or athleticism or whatever. And that's probably going to happen more as they face better passing attacks. So there's always a trade-off with this. And again, if they don't blitz more, then you're probably not going to get home with 4, because you're not seeing guys like Quintavious Hutchins or even Edwin Kalingi, who had a pretty good game. You're not seeing them just consistently beat their one-on-one matchups by themselves. Like this defense needs schemed up pressures, simulated pressures, blitzes. They need all this kind of stuff to get pressure on the quarterback. So I think it's just going to be a bit of a bumpy ride on defense, unless somebody really takes a step forward soon, and hopefully somebody does, because the flashes are nice from some of these guys, but it's got to be more consistent. They have to create more. And again, maybe we'll see some personnel shakeups just to kind of get some different bodies out there, try to dig deeper in the depth chart, especially they get a little healthier. But the tackling is the number one thing. Like, that's got to be fixed, because if you look at like the biggest plays, like if you look at this game, like again, it was pretty close for most, or BC was in a sizable lead. And when Stanford didn't have the advantage of a turnover or a short field due to a terrible punt, they had a lot of punts themselves, or their drives ended in field goals. When they had short fields, or BC allowed an explosive play due to a missed tackle or busted assignment, those were the two or three big plays. The touchdown to the tight end was when Omar Thornton took a bad angle to the tight end, and the big run by Ford was when Omar Thornton and KB Price missed the tackles on the back end.
Yep.
So you've just got to fix tackling. And frankly, I don't have an answer for exactly what they're going to do. Like, you just need to practice it more. You need to be more disciplined about wrapping up and go and make sure there. If you go watch the Michigan State game, there are some great examples of tackling. There's one where Cameron Martinez, who has had issues with this, makes a great tackle on the running back in the middle of the field. Perfect technique. There was another one on a crosser, I think, in that game, maybe in this game too. So that there are good tackles being made. Again, KB Price had a ton of tackles in this game, and a lot of them were high effort plays.
Yep.
But you need everybody else to buy it. Everybody needs to do that consistently.
Okay. In a moment, we're going to wrap things up by talking about Dylan Lonergan's game. We saw him come back to earth a little bit, but not uncommon for a young quarterback. We'll explain what that means in just a moment. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Picks Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in almost every it's actually available in every crossover SUV you could drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider here. Thank you all for listening, and thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And to all my everydayers out there, we've been battling the Stanford Blues here for this last week and getting ready for Cal, but BC has an off week. I wonder what you guys are doing for your bye week. I'm going to probably go out like apple picking or something like that this weekend. Do a few little fun things around the house and, the fall stuff. But, put it in the comments. What are you doing this weekend? And if you need another listen, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. Now, Dylan Lonergan, first half looked great. And then that fumbled snap, it seemed like everything came unglued after that. Mitch, what did you see from Dylan in this game?
I think this kind of illuminated Lonergan's biggest issue, which is post-snap processing, which is not a wholly, terrible problem for especially a young quarterback. You see NFL quarterbacks struggle with this, even solid starting ones. So post-snap process, basically in Bill O'Brien's offense, when they come out in any formation, like if it's pass play, Dylan Lonergan needs to read the defense and find out where his matchup advantage is. And the first thing you do is basically say, like, how many deep safeties are there? Is it one or two? That usually tells you what kind of coverage they're in generally. Usually the motion by somebody should help indicate whether they're in man or zone. And then basically you're looking at either side of the field, because in most formations and most plays, you're going to have one passing concept to one side and another to the other side. So if you think about the spot concept, which is the one where they've run it a billion times, it's the one where the pick six was, ironically, where they usually have Jeremiah Franklin run that little hitch route that's kind of angled. They run a corner route behind it, and they run a flat route to the flat by the running back. That's on one side, and then there's a concept to the other. Usually that's the two receiver side. So the one to that side is generally called tosser, where you have the slot receiver run a slant, and then the outside receiver run a quick in route. So it's pretty simple. Basically what you're looking at on either side is, okay, how many defenders are on top of each of these concepts? So if they have four more three receiver side, then you're probably going to want to go to the other side, which probably has it might still have 3, but it might be a deep safety who's more in the middle, or a slot overhang who's kind of looks like he might be blitzing. So you want to identify your numbers matchup there. The problem for Lonergan, I think, through the first 3 games, and again, it's not a death sentence or anything, but after the ball is snapped, that picture can change. You see these defenses do these complex coverage rotations where they move people around. Again, it's their jobs to make life difficult on the quarterback. And so when the ball is snapped, basically Lonergan is thinking, okay, like based on this coverage alignment, my first read or throw should be to this receiver. And I think at times he's just predetermined. He's, doing what we all do in Madden, where you're like, okay, I like this route, I'm going to throw that, kind of regardless of what I see. But I mean, I'm sure he's doing it based on what he sees, but that's just, that's at least how I play video games, because I'm dumb. So that's kind of what you saw with the pick 6 play, is that that's where he says, okay, that's probably my best matchup, I'm going to go there kind of regardless. And it wasn't just processing on that play. That was a bad throw because it was way too far to the outside. And that could be on Franklin not having the right landmark, because that play was run into the boundary, the narrow side of the field, which they do that pretty often, but it was a very condensed space. So that basically the corner didn't have to float as far to the outside because the field was condensed for them. But you saw them run this play successfully many times in this game. They threw the check down to Turbo for a big gain there. They threw the pitch route or it's called the spot route, to Franklin a bunch of times for solid gains. So again, it's not just a problem with that concept. But you see Lonergan where it's like if the picture changes on him after the snap, he will hold on to the ball a little too long and be like freeze. And okay, like now I need to rethink what I'm seeing. And sometimes it just takes too long. And that wasn't really the sack issue in this game. But you just kind of see the wheels are spinning a little too much. And again, it's his third start. He's got time to develop. So, you can see this develop. And I will say, like, he got better at it from the first game to the second game. And this was a bit of a bumpy road. But again, he wasn't going to be perfect this season. He was going to throw an interception eventually. This was obviously a terrible one in terms of turnover luck, but I think that's kind of the biggest issue they're facing with him right now. Which again, hopefully you can develop it, give him some easier reads, some more answers to what the defense is showing him, and as he just gets more reps, he'll be like, okay, like this is what I'm seeing, but if it's actually this, then I know to do this. So it's kind of a trial by fire situation, which it's frustrating. But again, like even if you look at this game, like obviously the pick 6 was bad. He had a few more throws that were pretty risky and could have been intercepted. But Reed Harris had a career day because of what Dylan Lonergan was doing, because he found those matchups. He put the ball high, allowing Harris to use his length to outreach defenders, so it's not basically, it's like I can put this throw high and keep it out of risk away from underneath defenders, and I can trust my guy to catch it because Reed Harris has all that height and length and everything. So that's good to see. Jeremiah Franklin, Lewis Bond were still productive as underneath targets who created yards after the catch. You still saw those elements of the offense be successful. It's just that these turnovers on the offensive side of the ball absolutely killed them. And then they in turn turn into explosive plays for the defense, which is something they are also struggling with significantly.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you were 2 turnovers away from scoring 34 points in this game.
Yeah.
Which is around
and honestly, like, if you think about it, like, again, like, take the pick 6 away, like, it's a 3-point game. Like, this game was won and lost on explosive plays, basically made and given up by BC on both sides of the ball. And that's the story of the game. It's just like you got to find ways to prevent those really bad ones on offense, and I guess prevent them on defense. And those go back to missed tackling.
All right, that's where we're going to wrap things up, Mitch. We have a week off. On Tuesday, we're back at practice, starting in the Cal game. But Mitch, before then, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitch T. Wolf, WOLF on Twitter. We've had the offense film review come out yesterday when you're listening to this. We'll have the defense coming out later this week. Still writing it. This one might be being shorter because, again, it kind of comes down to these really bad turnover plays. And then I'm going to get into a longer thing on Dylan Lonergan, kind of just focusing on his progression through these 3 games. Again, he's succeeding in a lot of stuff, and he deserves credit for that. And he's gotten better at, creating outside of structure. He had a few scrambles in this game. He had some plays where he was creative, where he got outside the pocket. So that's good to see. But you do need to see his post-snap mental processing improve. And that'll be discussed in this article, which will actually be free. So that will be a kind of gift, say, hey, like if you like this is something that a lot of people will be interested. If you like more of this and you want more, you can join VIP on the website and you'll get this and a lot more in terms of covering the film for both sides of the ball for this team.
Yeah, and obviously if you become a VIP, you get a whole bunch more like recruiting news and hockey coverage and all sorts of good stuff up on the site. So definitely check that out when it comes out free. I'll be back on tomorrow. On tomorrow's episode, the transfer portal is down to one window now, and it looks like it's going to be 10 days. I'll explain what that means to Boston College. I'll have more discussion about everything BC. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm available on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and TikTok. Check me out on all those. You can find it at either AJ Black, Locked On BC, or Eagle Insider. Just go find them. Notes are in the details are in the show notes. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.